Hey everybody, welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy week. Whoa, it is really cold. How are all of my Midwest friends holding up with this Arctic fracture? I mean, it is below zero here in Montana, which it always is in the wintertime. I mean, this type of weather for us is not very unusual, okay? But every time it hits, because we're getting warmer and warmer winters, even though they're getting wetter and wetter with more and more snow. So when we receive these kind of cold snaps, wow, I was getting gas last night. And I mean, because I've got this whole big weekend coming up and I didn't want to put gas in the car at 4:30 in the morning when it's 50 million below zero. So I'm getting gas and I can just feel my nose hairs freezing. I mean, that's the kind of cold we're talking about. So I hope everybody's making it through this cold snap, this winter snap, and it really is humbling, isn't it? It really reminds us that we are definitely not in charge when it comes to Mother Nature. Mother Nature is doing her own thing, and we are darn lucky to just be able to get in here and do what we can and not freeze to death. So I hope everybody's warming up this week. And our week started off with a bang on February 4th because we've got that new moon that came in. And I've been singing this new moon on Monday. Remember that Duran Duran song? Okay. That's been going through my head. So we've got this new moon that came in at 15 degrees Aquarius. And it's interesting because January was so full of crazy shifts, right? We had that shift where the entire dimension of love came back. That was at the very front part of January. And that shift was amazing. Then we had eclipses. We had all kinds of things going on in January. So for January in 2019, the year of Reconstruction just started off swinging a sledgehammer. I mean, they weren't kidding. They came in and they said, hey, we're going to take this down to a bottom line. And the bottom line is just reconstruction of the self. So the fact that February 4th rolls around and we've got that new moon in Aquarius, here's what's cool about that. You know, Aquarius is the thinker. And I've got a lot of Aquarian friends, and my sister-in-law, Melissa, Sienna, who also was the tour manager for my Ascension tour, and she owns Vintage Apothecary. She's an Aquarian. And for Aquarians, it's all about the overview, the big picture, what can be done to support the amazing construct of the best that humanity has to offer. So I love that we've got this new moon in Aquarius because the new moon is the time frame to really ruminate. It's a fresh slate. Okay. It's a clean slate. So we get to figure out what it is that we want to do to be able to manifest for that upcoming 29 days or so until we've got another new moon. So the new moon in Aquarius is pretty awesome because, Aquarius, I love Aquarius. Aquarius just wants the facts, and it doesn't like intellectual cheats. It doesn't want any shortcuts. And really, if you've ever known any Aquarians, they are known for their tenacity or their stubbornness because once they make up their mind, it's made up. That's all there is to it. So to go through this new moon in Aquarius is to allow yourself to really just make up your mind about stuff and own yourself 1,000%, to unapologetically own whatever projects you're bringing forward. And, that's hard, isn't it? Because we want to second guess ourselves to death. But honestly, the cool thing about February 4th's new moon in Aquarius is that it brings in a huge fresh start. And it's really, again, it's the first period of energy that we've had since we've moved into 2019 that is free of any other carabinered energy onto it. In other words, we aren't coming into 2019 feeling the ripple effects of a dimensional reentry. We're not dealing with lunar eclipses and solar eclipses. We're just dealing with this pure, authentic energy of self-truth. So rock on. Go, 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 new moon in Aquarius, which I think is awesome. And also, it bears mentioning that this particular new moon, it also brings in the lunar Chinese New Year. And this is the year of the pig, which is hysterical because when we think of pigs in the West, we think, oh, cool. I don't have to take a bath. This is great. I can root for truffles. But Year of the Pig, that's really about being generous, and it's about kindness, compassion, being honorable and devoted. And the Year of the Pig is all about what we can do for others. So if you think about how the Year of the Pig lines up with 2019's Year of Reconstruction, we are literally coming into a space where we are accepting that our vision or our version of the world that we're putting out in our mental scape through our hands, through our everyday words to one another, through our actions, that this is the year to be generous and full of kindness and compassion and to be diligent and devoted to the people that you love. This is it. This is not the me year. So as we soak in this new moon energy, in Aquarius, just know that it's all about bringing exactly who you are through to the planet. And it's really important, and being unapologetic about it. I mean, I don't know if you know many Aquarians who are just screamingly apologetic. If they mess up, they're apologetic. Yet I know these Aquarians that are they are so just dedicated to their cause. And a lot of times they're humanitarians. They are world-minded. It's really fascinating. It's an air sign. So this is also a time frame, and I just want to get this in before we transition our topic here, but this new moon in Aquarius is also a time frame to really get behind what you believe to be your dreams. Because Aquarians are big picture people. So if you've got these dreams of a business or dreams of who you are in the world, get behind that. And act as if it's already occurring. We talk about this in manifestation all the time, yet this clean slate of Aquarian energy is used so positively. If you can just flip and believe in yourself, this is it. Kick the door wide open on possibility. This is not the time. This is not the time to sit there and do the checklist of everything that could potentially go wrong. Okay. This is not the energy it's not Capricorn, people. It's not energy that's going to honor you sitting there going, well, I don't know. The other shoe could drop at any minute. It's the Aquarian energy of everything is big and amazing, and I'm going to act in my dreams as if they are real. So if you want to start a new project, or you want a different kind of job, or you want to rekindle your relationship, okay? Rather than going in with the attitude of, oh, I don't know, the old Eeyore, go in truly owning the essence of what you are. Because again, if you know any Aquarians, they are exactly who they are. They're fantastic. And generally they go through life saying, this is me. And so use this Aquarian energy to absolutely embrace and act upon those dreams that have been floating around in your head. Because as we talk about on this podcast all the time, they're not just dreams, they're seeds of your life path. So go plant them. It's really important, gang. So yay. Yay, new moon in Aquarius. New moon in Aquarius. And I'll finally believe my dreams. Seriously. Oh my gosh. Speaking of believing your dreams, I want to get into our main topic of our podcast today, which is all about the mythology of obsessive positivity. Now, what does that mean? The mythology of obsessive positivity. I think I'm honestly, I'm very much a positive person. I'm very positive. And even I have my crappity McCrappy days. Holy heck. I get the blues. I get bummed out. I feel all the pain in the world and all the weirdness going on. I feel my own pain in the world. I am not positive 24/7. Maybe I'm hormonal. Maybe I'm driving my wife crazy. I don't know. I do my very best not to take my half out of the middle of life. Yet at the same time, this mythology of obsessive positivity, I believe, is harmful. Now, what am I talking about? Obviously, I believe in being positive. I'm naturally a very positive person. And I think I can thank my lucky stars that I was raised in a very positive family because that was modeled for me sociologically. It was imprinted upon me that, you catch more flies with honey, basically. Welcome to Montana. And so as I think about the mythology of obsessive positivity, what I tend to see is that people feel like they're a failure if they're not always happy, happy, joy, joy. And I'm not here to talk about, crying in your soup and getting on Facebook and going on and on and on about every freaking problem you've had since 1976. I'm simply saying that it is a myth that a person can only stay 24/7 in a positive space. Now, maybe there are some folks out there who are truly capable of that, and rock on. I think that's amazing. I do. What I'm here to talk about today is that many people out there feel like they're failing in metaphysics. They feel like they're failing at spirituality. They feel like they're failing at all of their self-help books and their zillions of dollars they've spent going to their guru meetings and their conferences. They feel like they're failing because they still get out of bed some days and just are sad as can be. Or they still get out of bed some days and they're upset. Or they still get out of bed some days and they worry. So my issue with the mythology of obsessive positivity is that it can create a false ideal that in order to be the metaphysician or the quote guru, or in order to truly be in ascension, if you have one negative thought cross your head, or you have one worry, or you have a bad week, or for God's sakes, you ate a bad piece of cheese, like they thought maybe Scrooge did. I don't know, that you're doing something wrong, that you are turning your back on all of your spiritual training. And, intellectually, we all know that that's not true, right? I mean, most of us know that's not true. Yet it's upsetting to me, gang. It's upsetting to me when I see people selling courses on how to remove all negativity from your life. Now, I don't think it's wrong to want to teach people that you should do your best to see the sunny side of life. I don't know. This is going to be a Show Tunes episode. I can feel it. I mean, we want to do our best to manifest through positive vibration and through positive frequency. Yet sometimes our greatest teachers are the authenticity in despair, or the gentle accountability in pain. And again, I am certainly not suggesting we all need to get into a submarine and sit in our own pity pot at, 12,000 feet below ick. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm simply saying that there is a grand misconception that if somehow we get into a negative space, or we wish to address painful topics or grief-riddled topics or things that in the world that we may consider ugly, that we are being, in the world and we're losing our metaphysical and our spiritual edge. And I'm just going to call the BS buzzer on that one, okay? That's not true. We have to have a semblance of balance in our emotional state because we're human beings. And when I see these online courses that say things like, I'm going to teach you how never to have a bad day again, and I wake up every day and I love my life, and I mostly wake up every day and love my life. There's some days I wake up and I don't love my life, okay? There's some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have to do my taxes, and I put it off for 7 months. No. I mean, there's some days I get up and I think, my workload today is just unbelievable, and all I want to do is stare out the window and, drink an Ovaltine or something. Yet that doesn't make me any less of a metaphysician, and it doesn't make me any less positive. It means that I am honoring that space that my body and my psyche and maybe my mind, my spirituality is attempting to go so that I can process something, okay? So when we get into this mythology of obsessive positivity, a lot of times when we go out of balance with wanting to remain positive, it becomes a coping mechanism that's highly inauthentic. And again, I'm not saying that happy people, I'm a happy person, happy people are inauthentic. I'm simply saying that if someone gets angry at you because you're talking about some real meat and potatoes issues in your life, and you get the old, what I called the tight-lipped church lady, effect of, except metaphysical church lady. Nope. There's too many negative vibes. I just can't be around this negativity. I just can't do it because I'm a happy person. I understand that none of us want to be steeped in the poo tea of someone else's day. However, we do need to be there for others as they're venting about their lessons and their teachers, and we might learn something. Now, obviously, we all have the people in our lives that live on being the victim, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if we go to positivity as a defense mechanism because we feel like we cannot hear someone else's pain or issues without our own vibe being doomed, that's what I'm saying. That's the mythology of obsessive positivity. If I am really a positive person, I can listen to somebody go on and on and on about stuff. Now, after a while, I may need to give myself a break from it. If that person is addicted to that negativity, or that person sees themselves as the obsessive victim, because that's the only way that they know how to get attention for themselves. After a while, I'm going to excuse myself out of that energy because they're not looking for any assistance. They're just looking to be heard. So after I hear them for a while, I can honestly tag out and say, well, that's okay. We're good. Yet there is beauty in sitting with our emotions that are more complex than everything is shiny. And believe me, I love my everything is shiny days. And I'm really an everything is shiny person. It's ridiculous. If you look in my closet, you'll vomit on all of the lame. I'm not even kidding. So I'm all about the shiny. Yet I'm also all about allowing these energies to come through us and teach us the lesson. And until we sit with some of these heavier issues in ourselves, we can't really get to what the problem actually is. Or we can't really feel that peace, not just that mythology of obsessive positivity. It has to be positive. Oh my gosh. And I call it a mythology because nobody, again, there may be a few people out there in the world who are able to stay positive 100% of the time, 365 days a year. Yeah, or 66 if it's a leap year. Yet for most of us, there are people who feel like a failure in metaphysics, in spirituality, as life coaches, okay? I know a lot of amazing life coaches who are incredible empaths, and I'm an empath, and hey, empaths, what happens? What happens when we're picking up a lot of really heavy energy? We can feel depressed, right? We can feel down. Now, there's a difference between acknowledging that you feel down and becoming the downness, okay? Sometimes we do need to become the downness for just a little while. We need to try it on like a costume. We need to go to the depths of that downness to see what it's all about and infuse it in our system and really, really chew on it to get the flavor of it, to understand what it's trying to teach us. But normally, empaths, usually it comes and it goes, right? Yet we can be on a bit of an up and down emotional curve. Most human beings are. We're also full of all kinds of biological chemicals. People, don't get me started on that. So we get moving with this energy. Some days we're up, some days we're down. And most human beings will do their best, even if we're feeling down, to try to not splash that downness on other people. We'll do our best to hold a decent space for another person and for ourselves. And I think that's when I evaluate the energies of it, that is a more accountable response for our downness rather than falling into the myth of obsessive positivity, being like, nope, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. I'm fantastic. My life's never been better. I'm the best I've ever been. And tomorrow I'll even be better than today. Ew. Okay. And it's important to remember, gang, that we are now in the time frame of the feminine. And in this yin time frame, we are going to be asked to lead with our authentic selves. And unlike the masculine time frame that was pushing us to achieve and pushing us to suck it up, buttercup, better get it in the boat and row. That was the end of the divine masculine, which turned into the imbalanced masculine. So those of us that were raised in the old world, when we're having a down day or a bummer day, obviously we still have to go to work. We can't just shut down and pick a petunia out of the garden and just cry on the porch. I mean, as much as many of us would like to, we have to continue on with our lives. Yet we can go forward honoring that space that's blue and saying, okay, I don't really know why I'm so blue today, but you know what? Something in me is trying to process. And instead of beating myself up to death, trying to achieve this mythology of obsessive positivity, nope, I'm good, I'm fine. I'm just going to say, wow, there's something funky in there today, and I'm not going to light it on fire and make a big bonfire out of it and get a bunch of attention with it, but I'm going to notice that it's there. And I'm going to give it the space it needs to just do what it's going to do. So maybe today I'm not going to go out and be the biggest cheerleader of the universe. Maybe today the best I can do today is to be the kindest person I can, first to myself and then to others. And if people say, hey, what's the matter? Because I'm not, pulling the old mythology of the obsessively positive card out, going, happy, shiny, shiny, nothing to see here. I'm amazing. See my jazz hands. I mean, instead of going that route, we can just say, I'm okay. I'm just having one of those weirdo days, I'm just kind of having a weird day, but I'm good. And that lets the person know that you acknowledge the fact that they are reaching out to you to say, hey, what's wrong? I'm good. It's just a weird day. And 9 times out of 10, when you say that to somebody, you might have the person in the happy, shiny posture who's standing in front of you, and they're like, everything is great, everything is fine. And they hear that you're having a weird day, and then you get the authentic response from them. You hear, God, yeah, it is a weird day. I got to tell you, man, there's no reason for it. I just feel like I'm swimming through a fishbowl without goggles on and just. And you can both have that moment to go, right? It's just weird. It's just, And then it's not like you're hiding this non-shiny part of yourself. That's really different than people who utilize pain or difficulty in their life to bang it as a gong, to get attention from themselves, to be the eternal victim. That's a whole different thing. I'm just simply talking about when, we don't need to air every ounce of our dirty laundry all the time to people. That's a little much. Yet giving that wobble of weirdness just a little space in yourself was once considered very weak. And if you think about it, we're mammals. And so if we show weakness to another being, then what's to say that other mammal won't kill us? So in the masculine time frame, if you were feeling weak, you puffed up your chest and you got even bigger and stronger and louder. And we see that in leadership, old world leadership styles like crazy. You see it in totalitarian governments. We have a president in our United States who compensates for feeling vulnerable by yelling as loud as he can and puffing his chest up and insulting people. And because I guess we're not supposed to see the inner 5-year-old who's scared to death if we're busy listening to the blustery person. So obviously, we don't want to become the Eeyore. We don't want to be Debbie and Donnie Downer to the point that nobody wants to be around us. Yet it's okay to have that space in yourself in the feminine time frame that honors the process that's trying to happen within you. Because generally, when we're not feeling obsessively positive, when we're feeling introspective, when we're feeling kind of just not able to get our to-do list done, our brain, gang, actually needs that idle time. Our brain needs that downtime. If we fall into the mythology of obsessive positivity, that actually is an achievable metric, then what we don't do is we don't allow our brain to just process. And our brain needs those space out times. When we're just, when your alarm rings on the weekend and you have just a little bit more time to just lay in bed, and you're not asleep, but you don't really want to get up yet, and you're just kind of laying there. And it's before your brain takes off on every bit of taxes you haven't done and every bill you haven't paid and every laundry load that hasn't been done yet. It's before you freak out. Okay. And you're laying there and you're just like, oh, right on. When we give ourselves that sacred time, that is actually what our brain needs to come up with its most ingenious thoughts. That's actually the truth. We are so busy coming out of the old world, out of the imbalanced portion of the masculine, which was push, 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 push. You can't ever, ever fall behind, and you have to keep pushing and get out there and suck it up and work out with a 9 million degree fever and That's an ingrained behavior in people, yet it's not actually spiritually how we're designed. And our brains can't handle being full tilt fifth gear all the time. They just can't. We must be in a conscious, awake state and allow our brains to just veg. And it's interesting because I pay attention to energies, right? And I have witnessed the energy of depression fall upon people who are refusing to come out of that do bandwidth because it disables the do bandwidth. And obviously, I mean, depression falls on people for many, many reasons. Many reasons. Some are chemical, some are spiritual, some are food related, some are situationally related. There are many reasons that relay our emotions through what could be seen as feeling non-positive or sometimes depressed. And what I found fascinating is when I've watched those folks, certain folks, who would just become all of a sudden super depressed, it's like they'd crash and burn because they literally could not uphold this obsessive positivity. They heard the myth that if you just take enough seminars and you read enough self-help books and you eat enough ginseng and you do enough yoga, that you too will never feel pain again. And though to a degree, it is true that pain is a real impulse. Suffering can be a choice within that impulse. There is still a lot to be said to recognize that we come from a culture that sells positivity as strength also. And again, I really want to be clear this podcast about where I'm coming from with all this. Because as you all know, I translate for angels, okay? And angels speak in this massively dense language that's like a cube. It is literally like having a cube of information just dumped on your head. And we as humans go word to word to word to word to word, And these angels just go, here's your info. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's psychological, it's intellectual, it's theoretical, and it's all packed in this cube. So why I'm talking about this today is because as I reach into the world, which I often do, and I survey the energies of the world, what I'm finding is a beautiful phenomenon. And what's coming back to me when I go into the quantum field and I just allow, I use the force, Luke, okay? And I allow that energy to spread all throughout, not just this universe, but multiverses. I allow myself to feel all of the learning that's happening right now on the planet. One of the most profound things that I have observed lately is that there has been a great commercialization of positivity to the point where we can market it in such a way that if you're not feeling positive all the time, there's something wrong with you. You need some medication. You need a workout routine. You need a new body. You need a this. You need a that, because you are missing feeling completely positive all the time. And what I realized is people were seeking a place of peace, and they were trying to look on the bright side, which is just a good thing to do in general in life, because looking on the dark side is going to keep you in the dark, pretty much. What I recognized is that we're coming into a place in our evolution as a species, because we've already hit the ascension. That happened a couple years ago. We're coming into a place where we are really deciding where peace and joy come from. And that's really the meat of the podcast today, is that the peace and the joy that we seek is not just this myth of getting up and loving your life every single day. Now, that's awesome if you do. And most days, I'd say 90% of the days I'm on this planet, I love them. And then there's 10% where I just flat don't. There might even be 15 or 18 if I was really looking into it, maybe 20. Yet, most of the time, I'm able to connect with what my peace and my joy center is. And what I find fascinating is that we've marketed this obsessive positivity as strength. You know, I never say anything negative. I am pious. That goes back to a false piousness. If you think back into the old Christian days, back in the old days when everybody went to church, back in the old days, the mythology of obsessive positivity was being a good Christian, for instance. In one manner, it was being a good Christian. And we were never going to swear, and we were never going to say anything negative about another person. And that just got weird. I mean, it's good not to say anything negative about another person. Because as my grandma used to say, what Sally says about Selma says a whole lot more about Sally than Selma. And that's really true. That's really true. So as we look at where is our peace coming from? Where is our joy center? What gives us joy? What I've been feeling in this quantum field, gang, and this is really what I want to share with you, what's been coming back to me is that this joy and this genuine excitement to be alive at this point in humanity's evolution doesn't come through having a bunch of money. It doesn't come through having the perfect job. Well, unless the job's your purpose. It doesn't come through having the great car. It doesn't even come from having a proper retirement account. It doesn't have to do with income. What I'm noticing in the quantum field is this joy is coming back from people when they are initiating their purpose in the world, when they are enacting selfless behavior, when they are doing something for another reason besides just doing it for them. And, you know, back in the day, we used to have a lot of volunteer groups. I mean, my grandpa Louis, he was World War II generation. He was a supply sergeant in the Army in World War II. And my grandpa Louis was part of every service organization you could possibly imagine. And this is before those service organizations back in the day were so politically charged. You know, he was part of the Optimists and part of the Kiwanis, and he was part of the Elks Club and all of those things that people did to be part of the community. And my grandpa was legitimately probably the most upbeat person I've ever met in my entire life. Because he got up every day, and even if he was having a crappy day, you know, he would figure out a way to help somebody that day. And it would literally bring him joy. And so what I witnessed being raised, because my mom and I lived with my grandparents for a while, and one of the things that I got a chance to witness was how this man dealt with adversity. And man, he was Italian. He was 100% Italian. My grandpa, Luigi Cucciardi, okay? His parents were from Italy. And they came over here and they farmed. So my grandpa Louis was a firecracker. And he could get up in the grill of anybody if they got in the grill of somebody they loved. So it's not like the guy couldn't get upset. He was this Virgo with a giant brain and just, man, he was going for it. Yet he understood that where his joy came from wasn't how he came off to people. It was how he came off to himself. I mean, and that's what I think is so fascinating. It was how he was to himself, you know, and I just remember him being, he was always positive, even when he was crispy, because he was being true to what was going on within him. So when we think about this addiction we have to not wanting to feel pain, we're addicted to feeling good or to trying to feel good. Many people don't really feel good. Yet that addiction comes from fear. You know, it's like, oh my God, I have to do whatever I can in my life to not feel pain. Think about this, right? How many times have you stayed in the grossest relationship known to human history because you just didn't want to deal with the pain and the discomfort and the freakiness of the split up. How many times? Okay. Generally, we do this when we're younger. However, we live a majority of our life making choices to avoid pain rather than simply going forward in our purpose so that we may bring through authentic love and joy into the world. We're too busy trying to sidestep every pain molecule out there. And in doing so, we're twisting our knee and we're pulling our hamstring as we're kind of waddling across the creek of doom, trying to avoid every pain rock we can. And by the time we get to the other side of the bank, we've ruined our body completely instead of just dealing with a couple of pain pebbles in the creek. So if you think about the toll it takes, what does this have to do with the mythology of obsessive positivity? Well, a lot of people get into this myth that if they just are, if they never, ever, ever allow themselves to feel anything negative, because that makes them a bad person, don't you know? And that goes back to some really deep, old, non-biblical Christian mores, okay? If we really get to the point where we are using obsessive positivity to avoid pain, then we aren't necessarily engaging the lesson that's coming up for us. And that lesson is going to wait in the wings for us no matter what. Now, in the old world, in the masculine time frame, if we actually took the time to just sit for half a day with whatever bummer feelings we had, and again, we're not talking steeping in it, gang, or wallowing, but just acknowledging that there's some bummer feelings, then we would be worried that somebody would see that as a weakness, knock us off our spot on the totem pole, take what's ours, and keep moving. So in the feminine time frame, especially now that we've crested with this new moon in Aquarius as of February 4th, is asking us, hey, what gives you joy when you are putting your purpose in the world that elevates others? And most of us as human beings really are elevated by helping other people. I mean, that's what I love about my job the most. I love bringing messages to people through the angelic realm that literally change people's lives. And it's not because I'm amazing. I'm just repeating stuff. I love being in that position to be able to bring these messages through where people can receive them and then go ahead and act on them, and it literally changes their life. And I watch all of their life paths start to change and swap around. And when folks are speaking with me in these sessions, so many people carry so much guilt because they're not obsessively positive. Or they'll say, how can I possibly be a spiritual teacher? I'm so down today and I don't even understand why I'm on the earth and who's going to want to learn from me? And I'm thinking, how about everybody else who actually feels like that, who's human? Okay? We don't need courses in being non-human. We don't need mythologies surrounding unreachable, weird goals of being superficially positive all the time, because if we're that person, then we're successful. Our joy comes from honest acknowledgement in the self that we are a multi-timbral being. We are beings that are full of insecurity and full of strength and full of power and full of love and full of a little fear. We are beings that are full of dreams and full of worry. And it's all okay, because it's how we manage the soup, how we stir it, how we don't let it boil over, how we just keep it on a nice little roil there. That's what makes it taste good. Okay? So again, I really want to be clear in this podcast that I'm not saying, hey, if you're somebody that's struggling with depression, just go ahead and free fall into that pit and never come out. That's not what I'm saying at all. There are so many amazing people out there, many people who are empaths and don't have any idea at all that what they are suffering through are the feelings and emotions of other people. Yet it just feels like a heavy blanket of depression, and that's all they can identify. So they automatically assume it's 100% theirs. There are such good people out there who struggle situationally with just heinous abuse. And the fact that these folks can even hold their head up in a day is a grand feat of accomplished joy. So people come from all sorts of backgrounds and they come forward for all sorts of reasons. And I was on a podcast not too long ago called Yes and my dear pal Jennifer Whitaker is the host of that. And she named her program Yes and rather than Yes but, because obviously but it negates. Yes and means we're continuing. And Jennifer's work, I suggest you check out her podcast. She's a really fantastic, authentic lady. She's just cool. And Jennifer's work is focused on really just being at peace with the range of who we are. And I think that's really important because as human beings, until we make room for the spaces within us that are trying to teach us compassion for ourselves, for the areas that dwell within us that we might not think are so shiny, we're never going to be able to really truly have deep compassion for others. I mean, we'll be able to have it to a point. But let's just be straight up here. Let's just be Montana real for just a second here. Most of us, and I'm gonna go ahead and be general enough to say, I'd say pretty much probably all of us have hit a compassion wall after a while if we're dealing with people who just keep executing the same issue over and over and over again. We hit our wall with that person. And for instance, so Jane over here keeps having a problem with overspending. And then she overspends and and she's crying in her sink and crying in her soup. And then Jane is freaking out because she can't pay her child support or she's, whatever. She can't make her car payment. And this is chronic. And we try to be a good friend to Jane and we're like, shoot, Jane, I'm so sorry. That's a bummer. But after a while, we're seeing this repeat behavior where Jane just keeps throwing herself under the bus of bad financial choices or whatever. Maybe they're relationship choices. Maybe she just keeps dating Mr. Wrong and Mr. Wrong and Ms. Wrong and whoever. And it's just this big pit of woe that she drags around behind her in a baby pool with moss on it. Whatever. And we're looking at Jane and pretty soon we hit our compassion wall with Jane, right? We're like, Jane, sister, you need to get your crap together. Because that baby pool smells like sewage, okay? Everywhere you go, Jane, you're dragging a sewer pool behind you. And after a while, we hit that compassion wall and we go into a place of judgment. Because after a while, we begin to feel like we're being pulled into the baby pool of sludge. And so we go into a judgy position. And that's when, we get on the phone. God, can you believe Jane is with Mr. or Ms. Wrong again? And she bought a racehorse, so now she doesn't have any money. And can you believe Jane? And blah. So why do we go there? And then we beat ourselves up. And we're like, geez, I just gossiped about my friend Jane, who's like my frenemy. But I don't know. What's my deal? We go to that place of hitting that compassion wall and having it turn into judgment because we no longer can identify what our role is with Jane. Are we even there? Are we just a blank slate that Jane tells the same story to over and over? Do we even matter? Are we even on the planet? And does anybody care? I mean, right? Okay, we go there. Or we go to the other place of, oh my gosh, I'm just going to jab my ears out with an ice pick that I've, of course, warmed up with a Bic lighter because I don't want to give myself sepsis. But I mean, it's like, why am I listening to this over and over again? And then we're just not sure how my relationship with Jane makes any difference in my or Jane's world. So then we begin to create judgment to create a reason why there'd be any glue there. Or I'm going to judge Jane, that's it. Jane's a this or a that, because now at least I can put myself in the position, don't you know, of being somebody who's not in that cesspool, baby pool with Jane anymore. So then once we go through that whole cycle, then we're surfing Facebook and, instead of just going, wow, I think I'll just say, Jane, honey, you are having a hard time and you're on a hamster wheel of doom and I love you and I'm going to go now. Okay, call me tomorrow. And disconnecting from that energy, we stay connected to the energy. because we're still trying to find how we're relevant to Jane's energy. Because human beings, we have such a hard time just observing somebody else's process, right? Or we want to put our process on top of them. So then we go on to Facebook and we're grumping about Jane and we see the ads for the Mythology of Obsessive Positivity guru. Just, are you unhappy? I'm never unhappy. I'll never be unhappy. Are you having to talk badly about your friends because your life is terrible? And then all of a sudden we go, is my life terrible? Oh my God. So the whole point of that long drawn out analogy is that if we can just get into a place of joy and peace with the self, it doesn't matter if Jane's dragging a baby pool of sewage behind her and she never gets out of her lessons. We can hit our compassion wall, yet we don't have to go into judgment. We can just say, okay, well, Jane's on a hamster wheel and that's what Jane's doing. And I have a couple of friends like that. I have a couple of friends who I would absolutely run in, lay down on the railroad tracks so they wouldn't get run over by a train. Yet those friends, they make the exact same missteps all the time. I mean, I could literally I have a particular friend, I could almost set my watch to the missteps and when they were going to occur in their life. I mean, it's phenomenal. And that's really a self-destruction mechanism. So if I'm to hit my compassion wall with that person, because, maybe I don't have enough of me reflected back in them, don't you know? Because it's all about us, right? So maybe I don't want to be around them as much because they don't act more like me. If I'm really going to be that person, then I'm not really being a friend to them anyway. So instead, like I said, I love these friends of mine. They're amazing. I'm not criticizing. I'm simply saying that is their journey. That is their burden to keep reliving the exact same lesson over and over and over again. They are not getting the memo. They are said, it's like a skip on a record. They're starting to go forward, then they skip backwards, and then they go forward and they skip backwards. And I love them not for what they do for me, not for what they're showing me I am by allowing me to help them. I just love them. I just freaking love them. And if they want to keep going backwards and skipping the record, that's fine. And I've talked to every single one of these friends I'm talking about. I've talked to every single one about their record skip. So I'm not being inauthentic in my friendship. I've been like, hey, you skip your record, right? Yeah, I know. But I'm not going to do it next time. Okay, cool. And then I'll let it go for another 14 record skips. And eventually I'll be like, your record's like skipping, right? It is? Oh, God. Yeah. Okay. Wait, I'm going to get a handle on it this time. I'm like, okay. And I mean, obviously there are various degrees of this. If you have somebody who has an addictive problem, that's a whole different issue. And that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm simply talking about the fact that if we are trying to be obsessively positive and trying to live under this mythology that that's possible, then we can get into those record skips a lot easier because we're not getting to the bottom of what the issue really is. It's causing the record to skip. We're not finding the groove on the wax that's got the big old chunk of dust in it because we're too busy trying to sound good on the outside. And the reason I've spent so much time on this today is because we are really in a pivotal time frame in America right now, really in the world. But seeing as that I live in America, I'm talking about the USA. We are in a very pivotal time frame in that we get to decide, how are we going to go forward in authenticity? How are we going to build a better world? And there are days, that old saying, fake it till you make it, that worked in the masculine time frame. In the feminine time frame, rather than fake it till you make it, it's more about really just make it be what it needs to be that day. Because if you make it what it needs to be that day, you are making it. You don't have to just phone it in and seem like you're fine until everything comes together. And please hear me, gang. Social media is a slippery slope. We can reach out and receive help that we need on social media, that we could really benefit from. And social media is also it's a way to get attention through a lot of sad sacking and whining, if I may just speak plainly. And sometimes we need that for a minute, yet just encourage yourself to evolve past that and to seek attentions or connections, because we want attention because we want to connect, right? So to seek connections that we can make through initiations that we make. And it's really interesting. I knew this gal, and she was an actress, and she wanted nothing more than to be famous. That was her biggest desire. And there were a lot of wounds in her that I think she thought if she got famous, that those wounds would heal up. And regrettably, gang, it does not matter. Your wounds are going to go with you, whether you're famous, unfamous, whatever. So this gal would do everything she could, and this was back in the mid-2000s, and she would this was when MySpace was happening, right into Facebook, and everything she could do, she'd put online to just, show her philanthropy and how amazing she was. And she really liked to help people, but she also liked to show people what she was doing. Now, I don't think there's any problem with that. I think that's inspiring for other people. I love seeing my friends donating time to homeless shelters. I love seeing them do stuff like that. That inspires me to go do it. Okay, so it's not a criticism. I'm just saying she really felt that she needed the approval of the masses before she could go forward and feel positive about what she was doing. And the acting thing didn't go so well for her. And she eventually got a job in a shelter in Los Angeles. And it was one of the shelters where I believe that part of it was privately funded. There was something about that. But anyway, she wasn't out in front of people anymore, showing people that she had this job, because she was actually kind of embarrassed that she had a day job at this point. But she loved her job. And we kind of fell out of touch, whatever. And I ran into her a couple of years later down on Venice Beach. And that woman was so happy. She was the most happy, stable, solidified person. And I felt into her energies and those wounds that she was carrying, really that had to do with being heard and not seen, and all these different wounds we carry that we can paint over the top of sometimes with an obsessive positivity instead of just addressing the lessons of the wounds. She was so excited. And I said, girl, you look great. What is going on? It's so good to see you. And wow. And she proceeds to tell me that she didn't give up acting, but that her job got so busy that her job became teaching these women how to empower themselves. And then she watched these women who had gone from being prostitutes or drug addicts or whatever to actually going out and getting jobs they loved. Not just to pay the bills, but they went on and some of them got degrees. And she was just associate's degrees. And she was telling me how unbelievably fulfilling it was. And I said to her, I said, you are you're the most positive that I've ever seen you in your life. And she just smiled at me and she said, I feel good. So when we think about the mythology of, obsessive positivity, again, it's important to change our thinking or to retrain our brain if we are somebody who's been steeped in a culture of negativity. And I've done podcasts on that before about how our neural mechanisms will literally create chemicals to anticipate a particular thought pattern. And they'll hold those chemicals in these funky chemical barrels just until you need them. And so if you're a normally negative person, your brain has already made buckets of negative chemicals because your brain is anticipating that you're going to build a thought process with negative synaptic bridges. So it's got all the negative chemicals waiting for you. Well, if you're a naturally positive person or somebody who sees the world through a more positive lens, your brain has already produced a bunch of positive chemicals because it's anticipating that you're going to build a positive bridge. So there does come a time when we have to retrain our brain chemically. And if we naturally think negative thoughts or we're naturally going to the worst case scenario, there is a process to retrain ourselves to say, wait, I'm being negative, Nancy. Let's pick one thing here that's a non-negative and really focus on that for 30 seconds. And we're going to rebuild that chemical brain transmitter. And pretty soon the brain stops pushing all the negative chemicals forward and it says, oh, we're making a switch. The brain could care less whether we use positive or negative chemicals. The brain does better. The brain is happier when, we've got the dopamine flowing and the serotonin flowing and the brain's like, thank you. A chemical back rub. I love you. So it's important to note that there's a lot of complex angles to this issue. Yet the bottom line is that the mythology of obsessive positivity is actually pretty negative in the long run. Because in order to be obsessively positive, we have to deny the self some pretty human feelings. And in that denial, then we get into self-judgment. And then we think something's wrong with us because we're not staying positive. And we spent $70,000 on the weekend with the giant guru. And shouldn't we feel positive? I mean, I was shot out of a cannon and walked across a volcano. And shouldn't I feel positive? The reason we feel what we feel, gang, is that the human communication system is based upon emotion. It's based upon emotion. Words and intellect, those all got tagged on to emotion. So what we deem as bad or negative or non-positive is an emotion that is attempting to communicate something to us. Maybe we're supposed to grieve something in our life that's passed away. Maybe we're supposed to honestly grieve a job or a choice that we made that put us where we're at now. And now maybe we're having regrets. Maybe, you know what regret is really about? Regret says, I don't trust me. So when we're feeling a lot of regret, we're talking about what in us we don't trust. Do we not trust our choice making? Do we not trust? Did we avoid pain at all costs? So we live the pain-free life, which in essence causes pain. Obsessive positivity blinds us from the full communication with our own spirit. Okay? So again, I'm always going to stand in the gap for looking on the bright side and seeing the cup half full and all those beautiful platitudes because I believe them. Okay, I do. Yet I also see the great value in the feminine time frame of just be human, okay, gang? It's okay to just sit with some grumpy feelings. I mean, we don't have to act on them and be a horrible human being that people make memes out of. Yet, we can feel what we're feeling because if we don't allow ourselves to feel the full range of human emotion, we are not in full concert with the range of the human spirit. That is the honest to gosh truth. And when I talk to these angels, my job is to try to break down these massive cubes of information into an emotional conversation because angels are not emotional. I mean, they're just not, they have their own version of emotions, but they're not emotional like we are. We're a sack of water with some calcium structure in it that's holding everything up with a ton of electromagnetism rolling around in our cells and a bunch of chemicals deciding how we interpret everything. Really, we're a rolling bag of water with a chemical response to almost everything. And that is the interpreter for our spirit in this third dimension. So, though I highly encourage everybody to train the brain to make those happy chemicals, when there are those times that our spirit is trying to teach us and talk to us through other emotional means, take some safe time to go ahead and do that. It doesn't mean you're not a positive person. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean your $100,000 weekend with your guru didn't work, okay? It means that you are growing and you are learning. And here's homework. If you have not seen the M. Night Shyamalan movie, Unbreakable, with Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, you must watch it because there is this fascinating through line in that movie about this persistent sorrow that walks with Bruce Willis and why he has it. When we allow our purpose to flood into the world, and that purpose sometimes needs to have some big sit-down conversations with us, and sometimes those aren't so positive. When we are willing to take on the full breadth of our emotional communication with ourselves, and that does include non-positives, that means we are willing to hold that space and stand in the gap for our purpose to be bridged into the world. It means we can handle the complexity of our purpose. Because, gang, every single one of you listening is amazing. Every single one of you listening is gorgeous on the inside. You are a work of art. You are a one-off, okay? You are a one-off. There is only one of you, and that is it. There is only one of you to interpret the world the way that you feel it. And there is only one of you to bring whatever your gifts and talents are into this world, into the world. I mean, I really want you to let that sink in. People are not replaceable. We have functions that can be replaced. Like if I'm putting a tire on a car, someone else could put that tire on the car. Yet individuals are not replaceable. We are intricate pieces in the fabric of the quantum field on this earth. And we are not a one-trick pony. And if we're all supposed to be imitating one another, being chatty Cassies, positive, pretty soon we sound like a freaking tree full of chatty birds, which is really great on a picnic day, but there's no downtime. And remember, your brain needs that downtime to allow your genius to come in. It's a true story. Some of my very best thoughts or inspirations I've ever had were honestly while using the restroom of all things, because there's nothing else to do in there but just let your brain go. And, you go, obviously. But I mean, we don't give ourselves that time. And then a lot of us feel depression when we stop moving off the treadmill. And that obsessive positivity becomes a distraction because we confuse staying super busy with being purposeful. And being busy and being purposeful are two different things. And we must have grace with the self, gang, as we go through this feminine time frame and we try to figure all this out because it's kind of layered, if you can't tell. Okay? So the quick bullet point takeaways: allow yourself the big full range of all of your emotions. Being positive is amazing. Sometimes faking it till you make it in that moment will get you through. However, feel it so that you can make it, because that's what's going to get you to the next step. All right? None of us need to wallow. However, giving your own emotions a voice then allows you to be in full concert with the entire human spirit and your entire psyche at one time, not just the parts that may seem shiny or desirable or presentational. And last but not least, have compassion with yourself and other people. If their record is skipping, if our record is skipping, I've had times in my life where my record skipped so bad, I've had friends hitting my record player going, "Girl, do you know your record's skipping? Because I'm getting sick of hearing about it." I mean, we all go through that time. So have compassion when people continually thrust themselves in a position of learning the same lesson again and again. It's not a reflection on anything except for the fact that they're still learning it. There it is. And they're probably afraid. So go into this week and do your best to remove the false ideology that if you're not happy all the time, you're not spiritual. If you're not just a spring in everybody's step, then you're doing something wrong metaphysically. If you say something unkind to yourself, Jesus will hate you. Because none of that's true. None of it's true. We do the best we can, and we sit in the resonation of purpose. You want to feel good this week? Stop fibbing to yourself about what you're actually here to do. And just let yourself go do it. And watch Unbreakable. I love you all, and I will see you next week.